Hey everyone, John here, and I've been a fan of Bayonetta ever since day one on Xbox 360, but since then the franchise has gone in weird directions, becoming an official Nintendo licensed franchise. Nintendo owns Bayonetta 2 and 3, and let's not forget Bayonetta Origins. But there's been a problem across the board. There's never really been a Bayonetta game that maintains 60 frames per second. It definitely didn't on PS3, it doesn't on 360, doesn't on Wii U, doesn't on the Switch. But now, we have this, the Switch 2. And if you told me, when I first played Bayonetta 1 on 360, that I'll be holding a sequel where Bayonetta is Fox McCloud in the palm of my hands at 60 frames per second, I would have ran away from you. But instead, here we are. Let's try every Bayonetta game on Nintendo Switch 2. But before we do, a word from our sponsor, Rocket Money. We're in the age of subscriptions. There's movie subscriptions, TV show subscriptions, news subscriptions, and while they seem like a small amount, they add up over time, and they're very easy to forget about. Thankfully, Rocket Money is here to help you manage your finances. Rocket Money is a personal finance app where you can manage your subscriptions, lower your bills, make custom budgets, and grow your savings all in one place. Rocket Money has helped customers save up to $740 a year when using its premium services. That's a lot of dosh. You don't have to use spreadsheets to manage your finances. Rocket Money is going to go through your subscriptions, find them all, and give you the option to cancel them. And in some cases, you may even get a refund for unused subscriptions. So take control of your finances today. Go to rocketmoney.com/GVG and get started for free. Thanks again to Rocket Money for sponsoring this video. So, Bayonetta on the Switch 2. We're going to be comparing every single game to the Switch 1 version, but with the original Bayonetta, there's more of a complicated history, because this started on 360 and PlayStation 3, and is the only Bayonetta game post-Nintendo to be ported to other platforms like PC, PS4, and Xbox One. So here it is running on Switch 1, where it maintains 60 FPS most of the time. There are still some frame drops to be had though, like here in the intro, just a few mild frames. Just to work backwards, this was a lot more severe on Wii U, and even more severe on 360, and way more severe on PlayStation 3. Up until this point, Switch was pretty stable, although unfortunately it maintains the 720p resolution that the Wii U version had, both in handheld and docked mode. So there's a question to be had. Is the Switch version of Bayonetta the definitive one? And keep in mind, this has Nintendo costumes. You can play as Daisy in this game. So is it worth maintaining 720p or going to 1440p on PlayStation 4 and Xbox One? And keep in mind, Switch has Daisy. I think it's clear which is best. Seriously though, as a handheld game at least, this one holds up incredibly well. Especially when the Steam Deck, the closest competitor to Switch 2, is 800p, so the resolution boost really isn't that vast, and you do get a solid 60 FPS the entire time when playing on Switch 2. Not a single drop happened in any tests that I ran. So that's Bayonetta 1, a pretty basic one. It would be great to get a Switch 2 edition or a free patch that brings this up to a much higher resolution, but as it is, it's great. But anyway, Bayonetta 2. This one is a whole lot more interesting because it's never had life outside of Nintendo. The only platforms it's been on are Wii U and Switch, and I suppose kinda Switch 2 now. And both on Wii U and Switch 1, this game could definitely drop some pretty drastic frames. It holds 60 FPS most of the time, but again the intro is kind of a stress point, and this does happen in combat throughout the game on Switch 1. And I'm very happy to say that Switch 2 irons everything out. Not a single frame drop occurs. You're going to go down to 30 FPS in the cutscenes, but otherwise in pure gameplay whenever you're in control, this game is always 60 FPS. So we get a 60 FPS Star Fox game as well, kinda, with that little Easter egg when using the Fox McCloud outfit in this section here. It's also worth noting that Bayonetta 1 and Bayonetta 2 benefit from the Switch's faster loading, and when I say benefit, I mean slow down please, because there's no time to test any moves in the loading screen. You used to be able to just try and test some combos while the game loads, and there's no time for that now. You can do like 2 moves and then you're done. But Bayonetta 2 is still my favourite in the saga by a pretty drastic amount to be honest, and my favourite hack and slash of all time. The environments are the best in the series by far, The combat is so fluid, and again, the series never really tops this. And it feels like a huge amount of bosses could just be the final boss, but they're just plastered throughout the game, one after the other, just gradually getting cooler and cooler. Just what a fantastic game this is, and to play it in handheld mode at 60 FPS is wonderful. But again, just like the Wii U version, this is stuck at 720p both in docked and handheld, which makes it a fine handheld game, but I wish this could go much higher resolution when docked, so maybe a free update in the future. But for now, Bayonetta 2 is definitely best on Switch 2. There's no real alternative to get a fixed 60 FPS all the time. This is really the only way. And that brings us to Bayonetta 3, and this game had some pretty drastic problems on the Switch 1. So it targets 60 FPS, but even in areas where nothing is really going on, it doesn't hit it. It's very rare that it actually hits that number 60, and it doesn't really matter what's going on. It could be a drastic combat scene, it could just be walking through a forest, it could just be standing still. You're not hitting 60 FPS. Now, this is a much larger game in scope than any other game in the series. The environments are much bigger, the bosses are bigger, Bayonetta can just summon a giant scale-bound monster. There's a lot going on in Bayonetta 3, but the Switch 1 just couldn't really handle it. And Switch 2 can. This game is locked at 60 now. I didn't notice a single frame drop in all the footage I analyzed. It was always 60 FPS. And it is glorious. It feels like this is what the game was always meant to be. And if you just picked up a Switch 2 and are looking for some games to drastically enhance, this really is the one. It changes the entire feel of Bayonetta 3. Because it used to be quite a uneven feeling game, and now it is just smooth as butter. But there is still one minor issue. Sometimes the game does go down to 30 FPS in the more extreme circumstances. And this isn't frame drops, this is frame cap. So in this area here, where you've got this giant sunken city and a big boss in the background, you're navigating it really quickly as a spider, Platinum have capped it at 30 FPS. If there were a free update or a Switch 2 edition, I'm sure these could be uncapped to keep it 60 all the time, but just like the cutscenes, these are the few areas that are 30 FPS. But the majority of the time, this game is hitting 60 and not falling from there. And it has kind of changed my opinion on this game. This was my least favorite in the trilogy, and now I think it might overtake 1 in areas. It's hard to say, because every single game in the Bayonetta saga is brilliant for different reasons. But this is definitely the one to try to get those real big performance boosts. Anyway, let's take a look at Bayonetta Origins as well. Now this one isn't quite as interesting to look at because it is locked at 30 FPS most of the time. There are a few areas that do go up to 60, but they're rather rare. And this game didn't really drop frames on the Switch 1, so you're getting pretty much the same consistency. There are a couple of areas that do drop a frame or two, but it's never really drastic, so you're not really getting a transformative time here, but it's still nice to play the entire Bayonetta saga in one place. 1, 2, 3, and Origins. But we're also going to look at Astral Chain as well, because Astral Chain rocks. This game is also much like Origins, capped at 30 FPS, and on Switch 1, it stayed there most of the time. You would get a few encounters where the game could drop down a few frames, nothing too drastic, but it could definitely drop, and Switch 2 does fix that up. Astral Chain is now fixed at 30 FPS, and hopefully, just like Bayonetta 3 and Origins, hopefully a patch could come along that locks everything at 60. That would be delightful for Astral Chain. So, while some dedicated Switch 2 editions would definitely be nice, we have a really good thing going here. Every single core Bayonetta game at 60 FPS, apart from the few moments in 3 that run at 30 FPS. This is basically what people have been asking for this whole time. Ever since Bayonetta 2 was a Wii U exclusive, people were saying, like, put it on a more powerful console, so we can avoid these frame drops, and we finally have that here. Constant 60 FPS, docked and in handheld mode. It is just delightful. So thank you so much for watching, everybody, and again, thank you to Rocket Money for sponsoring this video. Again, you can go to rocketmoney.com/GVG to get started for free today. Thank you, and we will catch you next time. Bye, everyone.